Hi everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome to another video with me, and today I'm going to share with you how I created this bright little card using a variety of distress oxides and featuring the fairy couple as the main image. Someone asked me a few weeks ago if we could create some smaller sized cards, so here's my answer for you. 9.5 centimeters squared is the main panel, and then the finished size is 11 centimeters with both of my borders. So the stamps that I'm going to be using, as I said, fairy couple for the main image. I'm using dandelion, which comes in a set of 3 stamps at the top. At the bottom here, I'm using forest creeper, which is one of the stamps from the recent release, and then wild berry, which is a 2-part stamp, and I'm using the smaller one here. I'm also using mini dots. Colours that I'm going to be using: peacock feathers, picked raspberry, and wilted violet. That's the main background colours. I've got seedless preserve for the edges, and then for my stamping I've got Nocturne for the silhouettes, and I'm using Charming Pink in VersaFine Clair for the other foliage. I'm also using Liquid Pearls, Hydrangea and White Opal to give me a little bit of texture in the berries at the bottom of the card. I've got my white Posca pen and I'm using a bit of paint. We'll get started. As I said, the size card that I'm going to be using is 9.5 centimeters square. I'm going to bring in my acetate because that's how I'm going to mix it on camera for you. I'm going to start with picked raspberry, and I'm just going to twist my ink pad onto my mat and spritz it with a bit of water. When I'm spritzing it, I want to make sure that I've wet the edges of where I've squished the stamp pad, because I don't want that on my card. And then I'm just going to dab my card into the ink all over it. First colour done, and I'm going to repeat that with peacock feathers and wilted violet. Now, I'm going to dry it between each application of colour. I've got pink all over. I'm going to put wilted violet round the edge and then a bit of blue through the middle. Drying between each application. And that's our main background done, nice and dry. You can see that what I did was, as I put full coverage of the pink, then I went round the edge with my wilted violet, and I put a few pieces of the peacock feathers down the middle. That's a very bright colour, so you want to take care with how much you put, otherwise it will overpower the whole design. Now, I've decided I'm going to orient this way so that when I stamp my fairy couple, that's not on straight, is it? When I stamp my fairy couple, I'm going to use some of that, there you go, some of that blue will be shining through. Inking it up with Nocturne, my favourite for black silhouette stamping. Really lovely crisp image every single time, and I always take my ink pad to my stamp and not the other way around, because I feel like I've got a bit more control that way. So the very first thing you're going to do is put the main image down. Then you've got some focal point to work around. One of the other things that I'm going to be using in this design is the masks, the circle mask set, and I'm going to be using the tiniest little one. I'm going to pop it over the center of this fairy couple. Take one of my smoothies and my wilted violet, which I used round the edge of my background. And I'm just going to, from the center of my mask, flick it out around this circle so that I'm going to create a glow around this lovely fairy couple. What this will also do is create some darkness around the edge, which means that you get some brightness in the center. Now, I will always clean off my masks straight away, otherwise I forget. I pick it up the next time and you get a transference of ink, not what you want. Okay, then we're going to have fun with our stamping. So this is one of the dandelions, which, as I said, comes in a set of 3. Here are the other 2. Aren't they beautiful? So I'm going to ink it up with VersaFine Clair Charming Pink. And as I said, I always take my stamp pad to my stamp. And here I'm going to be stamping this upside down. Sometimes it's very tempting to take the stamp to the stamp pad, but I do prefer doing it this way around. So I'm going to put these dandelions coming around the edge and along the top. I like this for this because I think they're a good size for this small card, but I'm sure any nature of foliage stamps will work just as well. There are dozens in the range, and I'm sure if you're anything like me, you've got quite a few of them. Then we're going to take Forest Creeper, and I'm going to do the same. Take my Charming Pink. Isn't that a lovely name? Wouldn't that be job? Job of the week, naming the ink pads. And then we're just going to put a number of these along the bottom. And you saw what I was doing as I was putting them at different heights along the bottom there. That's just going to give us that extra bit of interest. Now I'm going to take my black, my Nocturne, and I'm going to ink up one of these wild berries. I mean, look at that. It's just so... I'm going to stamp it off for you. Isn't that just so delicate? There's such a lot of interest in each of those tiny little berries. And I'm just going to pop straight. I'm going to pop these along the bottom, in between and in and around my Forest Creeper. Again, different heights. There we go. Now, I do want to add a couple more of the Forest Creeper because I've got a gap at the bottom. And whilst I don't mind gaps, I think that adds a bit of something extra. And one more, just a bit taller at the top over here. Here we are. Now let me just pop these away for a second and flick this over for you, otherwise it's a bit distracting. Lovely. Now what I'm going to do is take my seedless preserve. That's the colour that I'm going to be using all around the edge. There we have it. Look at that. That gorgeous fairy couple. And depending on how much of that seedless preserve you put in, you could change the colour quite dramatically. Now I'm going to take my fairy couple again, and I'm just going to pop it, because it's clean, pop it back onto where I was, and take my white paint and just splatter it. You can use a Posca pen with this. I just like using my white paint here. Tiny bit onto my mat. And then I'm going to splatter the whole design. So I'm just using another paintbrush to tap. I know when Tracy does it, she manages very carefully, cleverly, to use the paintbrush on its own and her finger. Not me. I need another paintbrush for some extra tapping. So this just makes the whole design pop a little bit. Now, I'm going to take my fairy couple off straight away and I'm going to clean it. I don't leave paint anywhere near my stamps for very long at all. There we go. So they're nice and clean. That can go away. And then I'm going to take my Posca pen and I'm just going to dot. I suppose I could have used some of the paint that I had on my mat. There we go. And then finally, the very last thing that I'm going to do is take my liquid pearls in both hydrangea and the white opal and create some little berries along the bottom. Now, if I was going to mount this, which I'm not going to do just yet, but if I was going to do this at home, what I would do first is I would glue the topper to my mounts and then I would put my liquid pearls on, because I don't want them to get squashed, and they take a little while to dry, not very long, but they do take a little while to dry. So this way I've created my finished card and then I can just put it to one side. Always when I'm using liquid pearls, I will dab a bit off onto the side so that I am aware of how much pressure I need to apply to create the dots that I want. Now, there's one step that I forgot to tell you, and that was creating these dots at the top of the card. So I'll do it now, but really I would like you to do it before you apply these dots, because I mean, it's not impossible because I'm going to do it here, but you're more likely to create a bit of a smudge, and we don't like smudges, do we? So some of these we're going to stamp in black, and some of these we're going to stamp using the charming pink. By using the black, it just makes it pop. Not too much of the black, And there we've got that bit of extra interest. So there we have it. I'm sorry about the thing that I forgot to tell you to do, but I'd love to see what you make. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.